The Uptober forecasts for Bitcoin came to fruition, resulting in BTC seeing substantial upside gains. But now the question is, will this upside price action continue, or are we likely to see some retracement? Today we're going to be doing a market roundup to discuss Bitcoin's current conditions. And where better to start than the monthly returns heat map that shows that Bitcoin has in fact had a very positive month of October, seeing pretty close to 28% upside gains, which of course is a very much welcome sight, especially considering the last few months has been fairly stagnant, a bit sideways and boring for Bitcoin's price action. If we just go to the Bitcoin price live page here, we can see that generally the sentiment for the market is definitely substantially improved just in the past few weeks. The Fear and Greed Index has moved from a neutral value around 50 to a slightly more greedy sentiment towards 60 to 70. It's just fluctuating between those two values, which I know this is a counterintuitive metric, meaning that really we should act as a contrarian to what this value is actually giving us. But I think just a small amount of positive market sentiment, especially at this stage in a market cycle, is a very healthy thing. And we can see Bitcoin's really started to outperform and almost decouple from traditional market. I know that term has kind of been a bit hush-hush over the past few months, especially at times when it looked like traditional markets may be starting to outperform Bitcoin, and maybe the decoupling to the downside was actually what we were going to start seeing. But as I said, really Bitcoin starting to outperform substantially is a very positive thing. So really what actually caused this positive upside move? So we can see here from the September roundup video that we did that Bitcoin was sitting at a number of key metrics, especially when looking at more on-chain and fundamental data metrics such as the MV/RVZ ratio. So really this upside move, especially combined with the low volatility that we'd been seeing for months and months and months at a time, it was really inevitable that at some point we were going to get this big upside move. Well, to be honest, before we actually got the move, there was a little chance, of course, that it'd be a downside move. But really, as we saw from that previous round of video, all of the key metrics we were seeing were slightly leaning towards a more bullish move, and especially with some more market fundamentals. But if we just look at the 200 weekly moving average heat map, we can see here that we have substantially broken above this level, which currently sits at just above $28,000, which has really been a key indicator of potentially Bitcoin transitioning from bear cycle into bull cycle. If we just change this onto the daily candles and just zoom out a little bit here, we can see in every single cycle, Bitcoin usually finds some support at this line to the tail end of a bear cycle. Then this cycle was a little different. We actually spent a fairly considerable amount of time beneath this moving average. We've now once again broken quite substantially above this, which we had done previously, but now hopefully we have some considerable buy pressure if we were to retrace down to this level to really make it into support and make a solid foundational level for the upcoming bull cycle. And it's a similar story for the Bitcoin investor tool. We can see here that this has really clearly defined areas of potentially great accumulation levels and really dictated whether Bitcoin's in a bear cycle or a bull cycle, or potentially just the transitionary phase between. And we can see this was actually a metric that we hadn't broken above at any point for a daily close over the past few months, over the past bear cycle in this transitionary phase. So the fact that we've now convincingly broken above this is a very bullish thing for Bitcoin. This is currently sitting at just beneath $30,000. And if we can either continue this move to the upside, or if we were to retrace to this level, hopefully we can see again some more buy pressure coming in, turning this line into a level of support that can hopefully fuel considerably higher prices, probably similar to what we'd seen in the previous cycles, where once Bitcoin's broken above this level, such as here in 2015, 2016, we actually came back down, found support on this level, and that really actually kicked off the next stages of the bull cycle. But one thing we do have to consider is seeing nearly 30% monthly gains usually results in potentially a slightly overheated market. If we look at something like the active address sentiment indicator, this is looking at the monthly percentage change compared to the amount of new active addresses coming into the market. We can see here that this has actually recently given us a little bit of an indication that maybe the market's getting a little overheated. This has crossed above this upper deviation line, potentially signaling that maybe this upside price action we've seen isn't actually backed by a substantial number of active users coming into the space to actually buy and invest in BTC. So maybe there's not enough backing, not enough support to actually fuel this move considerably higher. Obviously, I might be wrong, and I'm definitely not going to complain if Bitcoin continues its upside move. But I think anytime, like we said, we see such a substantial boom to the upside, especially after such a long period of low volatility, it does take some time to really get some considerable interest and some real long-term growth coming into the space. It's a similar story for the Crosby ratio here. If we just look, we can see over the past few years, this is really accurately called whenever Bitcoin sees at least a 10% retracement usually. We can see in every single circumstance since 2020, even 2019, even earlier, every time Bitcoin has gone into this red sell zone here, usually, not immediately, following in the days or weeks, we maybe see a move of at least 10%, and especially over the past bear cycle, these have always indicated substantial downside moves. And even in the past transitionary phase we've seen over the past few months, once Bitcoin's entered into this red zone, we have still seen double-digit retracement. So we've just entered this red territory here. So it'll be interesting to see over the coming days and weeks if we do actually see a little bit of retracement, or maybe just some sideways consolidationary price action for Bitcoin to maybe let the metrics cool down a little bit and hopefully, again, give a little bit more fuel for a bigger upside move. But if we just look at Bitcoin over the previous bull cycle, we can see once we'd crossed above that 2-year moving average, this green line we see here, even between crossing that and the next all-time high we set at $69,000, we had 9 retracements of at least 20%. And some of them even 30, 40, 50, 60% retracements. And in the current cycle, we have not seen any retracements considerably yet above this green line. I know we've seen a couple of 20% retracements beneath this, but if we just consider this to be the tail end of a bear cycle, this transitionary phase, and we don't actually consider it a full-blown bull cycle until we cross this green boundary level, we're yet to see any retracements, and 20% retracements in Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are a very normal thing. So really, from now on, now that we've crossed above this line into bull market territory, any of these substantial pullbacks we see really should be considered golden opportunities for accumulation. And like we said, if we are to see any retracement in the Bitcoin price, probably around a 10-20%. Again, we just recently set a high around $35,000. So that'd be almost a 20% retracement, would take us potentially to the $28,000 line of the 200 weekly moving average, potentially the $30,000 line of the 2-year moving average multiplier, which again is a big psychological round number, that $30,000 level, which was also a fairly substantial level of resistance over the past few weeks and months and support in the previous bull market. So that's definitely going to be an area of interest for a lot of traders and investors. And if we were to break potentially even further to the upside, maybe Bitcoin does have the fuel to go to even considerably higher prices in this move, then maybe we should look to something like the golden ratio multiplier, which is suggesting maybe $40,000 as the next key level of resistance, which again lines up with some pretty historic turning points in Bitcoin for the previous bull cycle, and is also again another big key round psychological level that undoubtedly many investors are going to be looking towards. Also, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to ensure you're receiving all of our content as soon as it's released. And make sure you check out all of the resources we've discussed today, as well as the many more that are all freely available on lookintobitcoin.com, your #1 source for Bitcoin information. So just to summarize, during Uptober, as many people like to call it, Bitcoin has experienced double-digit percentage gains to the upside and has finally reclaimed multiple levels that have historically indicated bull market territory. And I think after a long drawn-out bear cycle and transitionary period for Bitcoin, we all deserve a little bit of upside price action. Although one thing we have to consider is even during bull markets, Bitcoin has always experienced multiple pullbacks of at least 20% or even substantially more. And some short-term metrics like the active address sentiment indicator, like the Crosby ratio, are indicating that a market cooldown in the near term is probable, especially after seeing near 30% monthly gains to the upside. It kind of makes sense that maybe the market needs to just cool down a little bit, allow some new capital inflows to really fuel the next leg higher for the crypto markets. And like we said, dips will now be considered golden opportunities for accumulation. So really, if we see big retracements, 20%, 30% or even more, we need to look for confluence to see where we're tracing to potentially key levels of support where we can accumulate even more for higher prices in the bull cycle, as we can now even more favorably say that the macro outlook for crypto and Bitcoin is very favoring the upside for the coming weeks and months, and the latter stages of the bull cycle seemingly are right here. If you like this video, then please visit lookintobitcoin.com, where you can also consider becoming a site subscriber to gain access to professional resolution charts, advanced macro and portfolio data tools, in-depth crypto industry reports, live and personalized indicator alerts, private TradingView scripts, and more, all for a fraction of the standard industry price. And let me know what your thoughts are on Bitcoin's price action over the previous month and where you think we could go over the coming weeks and months. Please let me know both down in the comments down below and on social media. I look forward to reading and replying to all of them. Have a very happy Halloween wherever you're celebrating, and I'll see you in the next one.